room remained in stunned silence as Lukman's words sank in. Amira? The poised, intelligent, admired Corps member? The inspector leaned forward, her voice low. Explain everything. Lukman hesitated, then spoke. It started during camp. She approached me, said she needed help making someone cool off. I thought it was a harmless prank. She handed me the phone and said to hide it in someone's pocket during the bonfire. I didn't ask questions. And you obeyed? The inspector asked. I was desperate for favor, he muttered. I needed a permanent slot. She said she knew people. Tobi's head spun. It wasn't just a prank, it was deliberate, targeted. Osagie stared blankly, his jaw clenched. Nkechi muttered, She used us like chess pieces. The inspector nodded. You three stay quiet about this. We'll handle her from our end. But it was too late. The blog post had gone viral. Within 24 hours, Corps members across the state were whispering about Zaria's drama. Amira hadn't reported to the ministry all day. Rumors said she had fled. The next week was eerily quiet. Lukman was dismissed. NYSC headquarters launched an internal probe. But Amira had vanished. Phone off, lodge abandoned. Even her roommates claimed they hadn't seen her since the video dropped. Tobi felt the ache of betrayal in layers. He had defended her, fought Osagie for her. Now she had disappeared like smoke. He began to wonder, was any part of her genuine, or had he fallen for a mask? Osagie was less emotional. Let's focus on finishing our service here. We've done our part. But the questions lingered. What had been her motive? Revenge? Power? Was someone else behind her too? Then came the twist. One night, Tobi received a message from a new number. You think you know everything. Come to the old train station in Zaria. Midnight. Alone. The sender. Amira.
It was reckless. Dangerous. But Tobi couldn't resist. He didn't tell Osagie or Nkechi. He needed answers. The old train station was desolate. Rusted tracks, crickets, wind whistling through broken windows. He waited. Then she appeared. From the shadows. Wrapped in a shawl, Amira's face looked thinner, eyes tired. I didn't want it to go this far, she said, voice breaking. But you were never supposed to be involved. You forced me to talk. Tobi stepped closer. You set Osagie up. Amira nodded. Because of his father. Osagie's dad cost my uncle his job. It destroyed our family. I found out Osagie was his son during camp. Tobi blinked. So you used us to get back at his family? I needed to humiliate him, she whispered, but I didn't plan to ruin his life. I told Lukman to frame him, just enough to scare him. But why vanish? Because it got out of hand, and now I'm scared too. She handed Tobi a flash drive. This has everything, messages, voice notes, evidence. I'm done running. Tobi took the flash drive and left without another word. By morning, he'd sent it to the zonal inspector. The contents were explosive. Voice notes of Amira instructing Lukman, screenshots of her chats discussing the setup, and even references to a senior NYSC official who had helped suppress rumors. The fallout was immediate. An emergency panel was set up. Several ministry staff were suspended. The implicated NYSC officer was transferred and investigated. It became a national NYSC scandal. Osagie was officially exonerated. A letter of apology was issued, and a notice posted in every state NYSC board acknowledging the wrongful accusation. but the victory was bittersweet. Amira had confessed but vanished again. No one knew where she went. Her file was marked missing. Some believed she left the country. Others believed she was still watching.
Tobi and Osagie were hailed quietly by NYSC leadership. "You upheld truth," the zonal inspector said, "even when it hurt." They were both offered permanent jobs in Zaria. Osagie declined. "I want to go home, start over." Tobi accepted, reluctantly. He needed time to find meaning in what he'd gone through. Teaching now gave him peace. As NYSC year came to a close, their camp batch gathered again for a send-forth. Tobi stood with Osagie and Nkichi, all three watching the sunset, hearts older than the year before. "We made it," Nkichi said, lifting a soda can. "Barely," Tobi smiled. "But we did," Osagie added. 2 days before the NYSC passing out parade, Tobi received a handwritten letter in his pigeonhole at the Zaria LG office. No name, just his initials on the envelope. He opened it cautiously. It read, "You were always kind, even when I didn't deserve it. You fought for justice. I hope someday you'll forgive me. A." There was no return address, but the scent on the paper, rose and oud, was unmistakable. Amira. Tobi sat alone that night, watching the stars. No anger, just a strange blend of relief, sorrow, and something resembling peace. The NYSC passing out parade in Zaria was grand. Colors, music, laughter. For many, it was the end of a simple year. For Tobi, Osagie, and Nkichi, it marked the end of a chapter written in blood, lies, and redemption. When they called Osagie's name to receive a special honor for integrity, the crowd clapped thunderously. Tobi smiled from the side. It was the least his friend deserved. They took one last picture together, arms around each other, eyes bright, a photo that said, "We survived." A week after NYSC ended, Osagie returned to Benin. Tobi saw him off at the station. "Write me, Osa," he said. "You know I will." Nkichi took a teaching job in Makurdi. She called often, always with stories and jokes. Tobi remained in Zaria. He rented a small apartment, began teaching full-time, and even enrolled in an online master's program. Life was steady, simple, but he never forgot. 6 months after NYSC, Tobi was grading papers when his phone rang. An unknown number. He picked. "Hello?" No response. Then a whisper. "Tobi?" He froze. "Amira?" I'm safe. That's all I can say." "Where are you?" "I can't say. Just thank you for everything, for believing, even when I failed." Then the line went dead. Tobi stared at the screen. Somewhere in the world, the ghost of campfire nights still burned. Exactly 1 year after NYSC began, Tobi stood under the same mango tree outside the mosque where he first met Amira post-camp. He held no grudges, just memories. He remembered Osagie's poetry, Nkechi's sarcasm, the fear of the unknown, the cost of truth. He had arrived as a boy with a backpack. He was leaving as a man who had seen loyalty tested, friendships born, love tangled with betrayal. He smiled to himself. Some truths may burn, but in the end, they also light the path. Zaria had changed him forever. Tobi adjusted quickly to his new rhythm. The secondary school he now taught at was understaffed but lively. His students respected him, not just as a corps member who stayed back, but as someone whose story had spread across Zaria. One afternoon, a young teacher approached him shyly. "Are you the Tobi from the blog post?" she asked. He smiled. "I guess I am." They chatted. Her name was Halima, a history teacher from Kano. Kind eyes, soft-spoken, but sharp-witted. Their conversations became frequent, from lesson plans to jollof rice recipes to philosophy. For the first time since Amira, Tobi found himself laughing without the echo of pain. But healing wasn't always linear. Every so often, he'd pass the mosque or walk by the old NYSC office and feel a pang. Ghosts didn't just vanish. They waited in memory's corners. Still, life moved on. He had started living again. A surprise awaited him one Monday morning. A call from Osagie. "Bro!" Osagie's voice boomed. "I'm in Kaduna for a writers' conference. You free this weekend?" Tobi's joy was immediate. Absolutely. They met at a popular suya spot in Kaduna. Osagie looked well, glasses perched confidently on his nose, a fresh manuscript in his hand. "Remember those poems?" he said. "They're in here." Tobi flipped through the pages. "You finally published." They talked for hours about Zaria, about Nkechi, who was apparently dating a fellow teacher, about the mess they had survived. Osagie asked, "You ever hear from her again?" Tobi nodded slowly. "Once, a call, that's all." "You forgive her?" He stared into his drink. "I don't know if I have, but I'm learning to let go." Osagie smiled. "That's enough sometimes." They clinked drinks under the Kaduna sky, brothers forged not by blood, but fire. Months later, Tobi visited Benin for a conference. On a whim, he stopped by Osagie's home. Osagie's younger siblings greeted him like a returning uncle. "Auntie Amira no come?" one of them asked innocently. Tobi laughed awkwardly. "No." He stayed the night, and in Osagie's room, the two friends shared old camp photos. One from the day Osagie received his Integrity Award made them pause. "She stole so much from us," Osagie said. "Time, peace, but we still made it." Tobi nodded. "We did." Osagie asked again, more quietly, "If she came back, would you talk to her?" Tobi didn't answer immediately. "I'd listen, but I don't know if I'd believe." Then he looked toward the window. "But maybe that's the point. Listening, even when we're unsure." Back in Zaria, Tobi began writing letters he never intended to send. Letters to Amira. "Dear A, today I taught my students about betrayal in African folklore. They were divided. Some thought the trickster deserved punishment. Others said the story was about growth. I thought of you. I hope you've grown." He wrote weakly, filed the letters in a box under his bed. Some were angry. Some were soft. Most were simply reflective. It became therapy, a way to process what could not be undone. One day, he returned from school to find the box missing. Panicked, he searched his small apartment. Then he saw it. On the table, a note stuck to it. You don't have to write to the past to find peace. H. Halima. He smiled. Maybe it was time to write for the future instead. One rainy evening, Tobi received an email that made him freeze. Subject: International NYSC Ethics Symposium Guest Speaker Invitation. They wanted him to speak, share his story. The theme: Youth, Integrity, and Nation Building. He stared at the screen. Was he ready? Could he relive it all in front of strangers? He called Nikichi. "Congratulations, Mr. Speaker," she said cheerfully. "Do you think I should go?" "Tobi, your story is bigger than you now. Go. Not just for you, for every Corps member who ever felt invisible." He booked a ticket, started preparing his speech, and deep in his mind he wondered, would Amira read about it? Would she show up? The bonfire had long died out, but its sparks still flew.